that used to thrive in forests from far north Queensland through to Victoria is heading towards extinction. In the past 2 decades, almost 1/3 of the population has been wiped out. 2 years ago, the gliders were listed as threatened under federal law. Habitat loss was named as a major threat. That's because their habitat is forests with a high density of old trees, some more than 120 years old. Now the ABC can reveal a government-owned logging company is conducting an experiment that involves clearing greater glider habitat and seeing how many survive. Our national science and environment reporter, Michael Slazak, headed out to the forests near Bendock in search of the increasingly elusive creature.
Deep in the alpine forest on the Victoria-New South Wales border, we're on the hunt for the world's second biggest gliding mammal in an area earmarked for logging.
And you're looking in particular types of trees mainly?
Well, they're generally in the canopy, but you can get them further down the tree. So we look in the whole tree. There's one over there.
The greater glider, also known as the clumsy possum, is hurtling towards extinction.
Going that way.
Some of the healthiest populations left live in these Victorian forests. Most are open to commercial logging. Trees here were cleared by Victoria's state-owned logging company VicForests, who will soon burn what's left. The ABC can reveal it's part of a controversial experiment called the Greater Glider Project.
It's a true experimental science project. We're going to be looking at a number of different harvesting treatments, and we're going to look at how those harvesting treatments impact the populations.
Tim McBride argues existing research on conservation of the glider is skewed, and VicForests plans to balance that.
The literature is very much about preservation, and you have a few pieces of literature that say, you know what, if you maintain a certain threshold of volume, gliders do okay.
In some areas where gliders live, logging will continue as usual, but in others, they'll leave more trees and then compare how many gliders survive. Australia's foremost expert on the marsupial says the experiment is a joke.
I see it as basically the terrestrial equivalent of so-called scientific whaling. We don't need to go back and continue to look at these kinds of things when we already see quite clearly what the impacts are on these species.
VicForests says its lower impact logging keeps the glider habitat in relatively good condition.
It still looks like a forest. It's got trees in it, and to some degree it could have a lot of trees left in it. It has open areas to let sunlight in to encourage other plant growth. So yes, it looks very much like a forest.
This area here is part of VicForests' experiment. It's what they call high retention, where extra trees are left behind to help the gliders. But experts say after clearing like this, it's unlikely any greater gliders will remain.
They're going to die. They'll die on site. That's almost assured. It will be 200 years before this area becomes suitable for greater gliders again.
This big, large hollow here could have had a greater glider inside it. Hopefully not. It's a hotspot for greater gliders.
Ed Hill is a conservationist who spends a lot of time in these forests fighting logging.
It's pretty gut-wrenching, and it's just tragic to see it continue to be lost. In 2018, when threatened species across Victoria have declined so much, and we're still logging their habitat.
For most industries, clearing habitat of a threatened species without a detailed assessment would be illegal. But loggers are exempt from those laws under regional forestry agreements. In order to comply with that exemption, VicForest must survey an area for gliders before they start logging. If they find more than 10 gliders, they can't proceed. Conservationists conducted their own survey here and found 11. The department conducted a follow-up survey and found exactly 10. After greater gliders were listed as threatened more than a year ago, Victoria's Environment Minister Lily D'Ambrosio was supposed to approve an action plan for the species by earlier this year. She declined the ABC's requests for an interview, but said that plan would be released soon. In the meantime, the logging industry will keep gathering its data on the gliders.
We are scientists, we're conservationists, we're also foresters, and we're trying to find a balance.
A balance that could determine the fate of a once thriving species. Michael Slazak, ABC News, Bendock.
The top stories on ABC News. Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull